Stories they fired the old janitor. He returned as CEO and... Have you ever truly wondered what people think of you, not when you're at your peak, commanding respect and wielding influence, but when all the superficial trappings are stripped away? When the titles vanish, the wealth dissipates, and your very identity becomes a forgotten whisper. What if you could peel back the layers of polite smiles and strategic alliances, of calculated deference and hidden agendas, to see the raw, unvarnished truth of human nature? To discover who would still see you, truly see you, for who you are, not for what you represent? I did. I decided not to wait for fate to deliver such a crushing blow. I chose to deliver it myself. I became a ghost in my own empire, a whisper in the halls I built, all to learn the truth. And the truth, for many, was a harsh mirror, reflecting a shocking emptiness, a void where I had hoped to find loyalty and genuine connection. But for one, it illuminated a soul of pure, unadulterated gold. Why would a man with more wealth than he could ever spend, a man who built a global empire from the humble confines of a garage, choose to descend into the anonymity of an old janitor? The answer, I found, was simple, yet profoundly complex. I felt my legacy slipping away, my life's work being corrupted from within. I am Lysander Thorne, and Omnicorp, the tech conglomerate that dominates headlines and markets, was my brainchild, my passion, my very soul. For over 70 years, I poured my life into it, nurturing it from a nascent idea into a global force. My vision was simple: foster a culture of innovation, respect, and a genuine belief in the transformative power of human connection. We built technology to bring people together, to empower them, to enhance their lives, never to divide them, never to discard them. Omnicorp was meant to be more than a company; it was a family, a community of brilliant minds working towards a shared, ethical future. But in my twilight years, the final chapters of a life dedicated to this purpose, I watched with growing despair as the company I cherished began to transform, shifting its very essence. Under the new guard, a phrase that still leaves a bitter taste in my mouth, led by my grandnephew by marriage, Roderick Thorne Maxwell, and his cold, calculating HR director, Bronwyn Vance, Omnicorp became a different beast entirely. It was sleek, yes, undeniably efficient in its new ruthless pursuit of profit, but it was utterly devoid of the warmth, the ethical core, and the foundational human values I had instilled. Their mantra became "optimize," a sterile term they used to justify any cut, any change. Their god was profit, a singular, all-consuming deity, and their preferred method was cost-cutting, often executed with a surgical precision that bled the very life out of the people who had dedicated their lives to Omnicorp's growth. Older employees, loyal veterans who had built this company brick by digital brick, were no longer seen as experienced assets, repositories of invaluable institutional knowledge. Instead, they were labeled liabilities, expensive and, in their eyes, easily replaced. The whispers of impending layoffs became a constant, chilling hum throughout the gleaming corridors, each one a dagger to my heart, a testament to the erosion of my life's work. Roderick, with his impeccably slicked-back hair and an even slicker repertoire of corporate jargon, spoke endlessly of synergy and lean operations, but I saw through the veneer, the thin facade of progress. He lacked genuine vision, a creative spark. Instead, he relied entirely on aggressive marketing campaigns and the systematic dismantling of existing, well-tested structures, all without understanding the delicate balance that held them together. Bronwyn Vance, a woman whose smile never quite reached her eyes, leaving them cold and distant, was his perfect accomplice. She possessed a chilling efficiency in delivering bad news, an almost artistic knack for justifying cruelty with an impenetrable corporate speak that masked the human cost. I tried to intervene, to remind them, gently at first, then more forcefully, of our core values, of the human cost of their decisions. My words, however, were consistently met with polite nods, dismissive assurances, and patronizing smiles. They saw me as a relic, a sentimental old fool clinging to outdated ideals in a rapidly evolving, cutthroat market. They even began to subtly sideline me, gradually reducing my influence on the board, attributing my legitimate concerns to age-related anxieties, a convenient excuse to dismiss my wisdom as senility. The irony was palpable. They were dismantling the very foundation I had laid, and then blaming my age for my distress. I understood then, with a heavy heart, that my words, spoken from the lofty perch of a respected founder, held no actual weight in their new corporate hierarchy. They respected only power, raw and undeniable, not wisdom, not experience, not the deep understanding that only comes from decades of dedicated creation. And so, a radical, almost absurd, idea began to take root in my mind. If they wouldn't listen to Lysander Thorne, the revered chairman, perhaps they would reveal their true colors to someone they deemed utterly powerless, utterly insignificant. I would become a ghost, a shadow flitting through the halls, a silent, unobserved observer. I would disappear from public life, and then reappear, transformed, as Silas, a quiet, elderly janitor. The plan was audacious, dangerous, and utterly necessary. The preparation was meticulous, bordering on obsessive. For weeks, I worked in absolute secrecy with a handful of trusted contacts outside the company, people whose loyalty I had earned over decades. We meticulously crafted a new identity for Silas, a fabricated past as a former small-town mechanic forced into menial work after his shop went bankrupt, a convincing appearance that masked my true self. My tailor, a man of discreet genius who had crafted my bespoke suits for years, now crafted worn-out but utterly believable janitorial uniforms, complete with strategically placed stains and frayed cuffs. I spent hours practicing my gait, my voice, my posture, shedding the innate confidence and authority of a CEO for the humble, almost invisible, anonymity of a cleaning crew member. I even arranged for a small, unassuming apartment in a less affluent part of the city, a stark contrast to my sprawling estate, completing the illusion of a man who had indeed seen much better days. My personal assistant, a steadfast and loyal soul named Mr. Henderson, no relation to Mrs. Henderson from accounting, though I would soon learn her plight, was the only one privy to my true intentions, tasked with maintaining my public facade while I embarked on my secret mission. He meticulously managed my public schedule, issuing statements about my extended sabbatical for personal reflection and ensuring no one suspected my true whereabouts. The transformation was not just physical, it was a profound psychological shift, preparing myself to be utterly unseen. I wanted to see the true character of my employees, from the highest-ranking executives, many of whom owed their careers to me, to the newest interns fresh out of college. I wanted to witness, firsthand, the unvarnished impact of Roderick and Bronwyn's leadership, their innovative policies. Were they truly building a more efficient, future-proof company, or were they simply eroding its very foundations, chipping away at the ethical bedrock I had so carefully laid? Would anyone remember the values upon which Omnicorp was built, the spirit of collaboration and empathy, or had greed and indifference consumed everything, leaving only a hollow shell? I didn't want to hear sanitized reports or read carefully curated statistics filtered through layers of corporate speak. I wanted to feel the pulse of my company, to smell its air, to see the fear and, perhaps, the hope, in the eyes of its people. This was not just a test for them, it was a test for me, a final, agonizing reckoning to decide if the company I built, the legacy I had poured my entire life into, was still worth fighting for. And so, with a heavy heart but a clear, unwavering purpose, I stepped out of my executive suite, out of the public eye, and into the shadows, ready to become Silas. So, how did my grandnephew by marriage, the man I had once thought of as a potential successor, and his cohort of cold, calculating enforcers, truly treat the poor old janitor? The transformation was complete, a metamorphosis both profound and chilling. The tailored suits, each thread a testament to power and prestige, were replaced by worn overalls, the fabric rough against my skin, smelling faintly of disinfectant. My polished Italian leather shoes, once gleaming under executive desks, were supplanted by scuffed, heavy work boots that seemed to anchor me to the ground. My hair, usually meticulously styled and impeccably silver, was now a bit disheveled, sprinkled with artificial gray to suggest a less cared-for appearance, a subtle hint of neglect. My spectacles, usually framing my sharp gaze, were subtly altered to give me a more aged, slightly bewildered look, reflecting the persona of a man whose best days were long behind him. I adopted a slower, more deliberate pace, a slight stoop in my shoulders, as if carrying the invisible weight of years and toil. From the moment I first pushed my cleaning cart, its wheels rattling softly, through the gleaming, pristine corridors of Omnicorp headquarters, I was no longer Lysander Thorne. I was Silas. And the irony, I assure you, was not lost on me. I, the man who had personally designed every inch of this magnificent building, from the soaring atrium to the intricate network of server rooms, now cleaned its toilets, scrubbing away the grime that clung to the porcelain. I, who had approved the colossal budget for its state-of-the-art facilities, its intelligent lighting, its advanced climate control, now scrubbed the floors, painstakingly removing forgotten coffee stains and muddy footprints. And the invisible cloak of anonymity that immediately enveloped me was instantly chilling, a profound shock to my system. People I had known for decades, individuals whose careers I had personally nurtured, whose families I had met at company picnics, walked past me without a second glance. Their eyes, once filled with a respectful deference, now simply registered a uniform, a background fixture, an obstacle to be avoided. It was a profound, immediate lesson in how quickly one's perceived status dictates one's very visibility, how easily one can become utterly unseen. The weight of their indifference, the sheer erasure of my existence in their eyes, was a far heavier burden than any cleaning supply I pushed on my cart. My days as Silas were a stark, often painful, education. I saw and heard things I never would have from the insulated ivory tower of my executive office. I overheard hushed conversations in dimly lit, supposedly empty conference rooms about impending layoffs, the panicked whispers of employees worried sick about their mortgages, their children's tuition, their ability to provide. I observed the desperate attempts of mid-level managers to impress Roderick and Bronwyn, often at the direct expense of their colleagues, throwing others under the bus in a frantic bid for personal survival. The atmosphere throughout the building was thick with palpable anxiety, a chilling, every man for himself mentality that was utterly foreign to the collaborative spirit I had fostered. Lunch breaks were no longer boisterous gatherings of ideas and camaraderie but quiet, tense affairs, employees glued to their phones, scanning job boards, or exchanging worried glances. Roderick himself, when he occasionally deigned to acknowledge my presence, would do so with a quick, condescending nod, sometimes a curt instruction if I happened to be cleaning near his office door. He never, not once, met my eyes. He saw a nameless face, a utility, a functionary, certainly not a human being with thoughts or feelings, much less the founder of his entire world. Bronwyn Vance was even worse. Her gaze, when it fell upon me, was utterly devoid of any recognition, replaced instead by a cold, appraising scrutiny, as if she were mentally assessing my efficiency with a silent stopwatch. I remember one particular incident with agonizing clarity. I was carefully mopping a freshly spilled coffee near the executive elevators, trying to prevent anyone from slipping, when Roderick and Bronwyn emerged, deep in conversation, their laughter echoing a little too loudly in the polished space. I stepped aside, offering a small, deferential nod, embodying Silas's humble persona. Roderick merely grunted, not breaking stride, but Bronwyn paused, her eyes narrowing, a flicker of irritation crossing her features. "Silas, wasn't it?" she said, her voice sharp, cutting through the air. "Try to be less noticeable. We have important clients passing through." Her implication was clear, brutally so. My very presence, my existence as a janitor, was an inconvenience, a blemish on their pristine corporate image, an embarrassing reminder of the bold ways. The sting of her words was surprisingly acute, even though I knew it was all part of the act, a necessary facet of my disguise. It highlighted the sheer contempt with which they viewed anyone below their arbitrary social threshold. But it wasn't just them. The rot had spread further. I saw it in the cafeteria, where younger, ambitious employees openly mocked the older staff, dismissing their experience as outdated. I saw it in the way managers would speak to their subordinates, a new kind of dismissive tone I hadn't heard before, a dehumanizing efficiency that stripped away individual dignity. The Omnicorp family I had so carefully cultivated over decades was now a fractured, competitive landscape, a battleground where survival meant stepping on others. The sense of belonging, the mutual respect, had vanished, replaced by a cutthroat, dog-eat-dog mentality. I felt a deep, profound sadness watching my dream crumble from the inside, seeing the faces of people I had once championed now shadowed by fear and anxiety. My heart ached with a physical pain as I witnessed the dismissals, one after another. They weren't just numbers on a spreadsheet, abstract figures in a quarterly report, they were faces I knew, lives I had touched, careers I had personally overseen. There was Mrs. Henderson from accounting, a woman with a gentle, perpetually optimistic smile who had been with Omnicorp for 45 years, her retirement, her golden years, just a single year away. I watched from the shadows, hidden behind a towering plant, as Bronwyn Vance, with a practiced, regretful expression that didn't quite reach her eyes, handed her a severance package. Mrs. Henderson's face, usually bright with that gentle smile, crumpled in disbelief, then profound sadness, her features dissolving into a mask of pure heartbreak. But I gave my life to this company, I heard her whisper, tears streaming down her wrinkled cheeks, her voice barely audible, thick with betrayal. Bronwyn simply offered a bland, rehearsed platitude about restructuring for future growth, her words hollow and devoid of any genuine empathy. I clenched my fists, the mop handle feeling like a fragile stick in my grip, utterly impotent. The injustice burned through me, a scorching fire. Then there was Michael, a systems engineer, a man of quiet dignity and brilliant intellect, who had helped build our original server infrastructure from the ground up. He was always willing to help, always had a patient answer for anyone, regardless of their technical knowledge. I saw him being escorted out, his small box of personal belongings clutched tightly to his chest, his shoulders slumped in defeat. There were no farewells, no recognition of his decades of invaluable service, no handshake of gratitude. Just a silent, humiliating exit, watched by averted eyes and hushed whispers. I longed, desperately, to step forward, to reveal myself, to stop this madness, to shout at them, to remind them of the human cost of their efficiencies. But my resolve held, a painful anchor in the storm of my emotions. Not yet. The test wasn't over. I needed to see how far they would go. I needed to find out if there was any soul left in Omnicorp, any flicker of the humanity I had instilled. The day finally came when the axe fell, not just on other employees, but on Silas himself. I had anticipated it, perhaps even subconsciously provoked it with my slightly less than robotic efficiency. I was meticulously cleaning near the main entrance, polishing the towering glass doors to a sparkling sheen, when Roderick and Bronwyn approached, their faces set in grim, determined expressions. A younger, eager security guard, one of the new recruits, was dutifully with them, looking somewhat uncomfortable. Silas, Bronwyn began, her voice devoid of its usual professional coldness, replaced by an artificial, almost theatrical sternness. We've had some reports. I feigned confusion, my brow furrowing, my eyes wide with a carefully constructed innocence. Reports, ma'am? I don't understand. Roderick stepped forward, his eyes narrowed, his posture radiating thinly veiled contempt. Don't play coy, old man. We've received multiple complaints about your inefficiency. Your lack of attention to detail. And frankly, he paused, his gaze sweeping over my worn uniform with undisguised disdain, as if I were a particularly unpleasant stain on the pristine floor. Your appearance is hardly befitting of Omnicorp's image. We're a forward-thinking, cutting-edge company, not a retirement home for the senile. The words were like shards of ice, deliberately designed to cut deep, to strip away any remaining dignity. I felt a sharp pang, not for myself, for Silas was merely a costume, but for the countless others who had heard similar pronouncements, their lives summarily dismissed. I always try my best, sir, I mumbled, lowering my gaze, embodying the defeated, apologetic old man they expected, the man who knew his place. Bronwyn held up a laminated ID badge, clearly not mine, its corporate logo glinting under the harsh overhead lights. And then there's this. Found near your cart this morning, conveniently placed. Unauthorized access attempts have been logged from this badge number. A clear breach of security protocols. We cannot tolerate such negligence, especially from someone in your position, with access to sensitive areas after hours. It was a blatant fabrication, a flimsy, transparent lie. I had seen that badge earlier, dropped by a careless junior executive near the coffee station, and had fully intended to turn it in to Lost and Found. They had manufactured an excuse, a trivial, concocted reason, to dismiss me, to get rid of the old liability, that was Silas. It was textbook corporate cruelty, utterly predictable, and undeniably effective. I didn't. I never. I began, trying to sound genuinely flustered, to convey the shock and betrayal of an innocent man. Roderick cut me off with a dismissive wave of his hand, as if swatting away a bothersome fly. Enough. Your services are no longer required, Silas. Effective immediately. Security will escort you out. He gestured imperiously to the young guard, who looked deeply uncomfortable but dutifully stepped forward. My heart hammered in my chest, a tumultuous mix of searing anger at their injustice and a strange, quiet satisfaction. This was it. The ultimate indignity, the final, crucial piece of their contempt, the proof I needed. I was being thrown out of my own company, publicly humiliated at the very entrance I had designed. I looked around, desperate, hoping to see a flicker of protest, a single face expressing discomfort or disapproval among the passing employees. There was nothing. Just averted gazes, hurried steps, a collective desire to be anywhere else but caught in this awkward, uncomfortable scene. The fear in their eyes was almost as chilling as the indifference. As the security guard gently but firmly took my arm, his touch surprisingly respectful, preparing to lead me towards the exit, a small voice, trembling but clear, broke through the corporate silence. Wait. I turned, feigning surprise, my eyes widening slightly. It was Alara Finch, a junior developer I had occasionally observed in the cafeteria, always quietly diligent, often working late, her desk usually a meticulously organized testament to her dedication and focus. She looked young, perhaps in her mid-20s, and perpetually a little nervous, her shoulders often hunched. Now, her face was pale, but her eyes, usually downcast, held a spark of undeniable defiance, a nascent courage. She clutched a small lunch bag in her hand, her knuckles white. Mr. Silas, she began, her voice trembling slightly, but gaining strength with each word, I saw what happened. And I know you didn't do anything wrong. You're always so careful, so meticulous in your work. She glanced nervously at Roderick and Bronwyn, who stared back with open annoyance, then her gaze softened as she looked back at me. And I know you might not have had a chance to eat yet, being dismissed so suddenly. With a hesitant step, she extended her humble lunch bag towards me, her hand shaking slightly. Please, take my lunch. It's just a sandwich and an apple, nothing fancy, but you should eat something. The gesture was so small, so utterly simple, yet it hit me with the force of a tidal wave, a spiritual earthquake. In that sterile, heartless environment, where everyone was looking out for themselves, where compassion had been systematically purged, deemed inefficient, this young woman, a junior employee with little power, was risking her own job, her own precarious future, to offer a complete stranger, a supposedly disgraced janitor, a meager sandwich and an apple. Her eyes, filled with genuine concern, saw past the uniform, past the fabricated charges, straight to the human being beneath. She saw my dignity, even in my supposed destitution. It was an act of pure, unadulterated grace. Roderick scoffed, a short, contemptuous sound. "Miss Finch, I suggest you reconsider your priorities. Your sentimentality is utterly misplaced here. This is a professional environment, not a soup kitchen." Bronwyn's voice was sharper, colder, laced with a barely concealed threat. "Elara, this is hardly appropriate. You're making a spectacle of yourself, and drawing unnecessary attention." But Elara, to my profound astonishment, didn't back down. She simply held the bag out further, her chin lifting slightly, a newfound courage shining in her eyes. "He's a person, Miss Vance. And he's hungry." I looked at her, truly looked at her for the first time, seeing beyond the junior developer, seeing the unwavering moral compass within. Her act of kindness was not a calculated move, not a bid for favor, not a strategic play. It was pure, unadulterated human empathy, a spontaneous outpouring of goodness. In that moment, the entire carefully constructed facade of Silas almost crumbled. My throat tightened, a lump forming, feeling the tremor of emotion I desperately tried to suppress, to keep the old janitor's facade intact. This was it. This was the soul of Omnicorp, the one flickering ember of humanity I had been searching for, the answer to my agonizing question. This was the reason I had embarked on this absurd, painful journey. I took the lunch bag from her, my fingers brushing hers, a brief, electrifying touch of genuine human connection. "Thank you, Elara," I said, my voice hoarse, thick with an emotion I fought to conceal. "Thank you. More than you know." As the guard led me away, his grip still gentle, I cast one last look back at Elara. She stood there, a small but resolute figure, watching me go, her gaze filled with a quiet sadness that resonated with my own. My resolve, which had wavered at times under the crushing weight of disappointment and disillusionment, now solidified into unyielding steel. This was no longer just a test. This was a war for the very heart and soul of my company, a battle for its ethical core. Roderick and Bronwyn had just made the biggest mistake of their lives. They had fired the founder, the man who built it all, and in doing so, they had given him the final, irrefutable proof he needed to reclaim his throne. The game, as they say, was finally on. But every game has an end, right? Every drama builds to its climax. And this game, my friends, was about to reach its explosive, unforgettable crescendo. After the humiliation, after Elara's profoundly simple yet powerful act of kindness, I knew it was time. My personal assistant, Mr. Henderson, a man whose loyalty had been tested and proven true, had been diligently preparing for this exact moment. The past few days had been a blur of clandestine phone calls, meticulously drafted legal documents, and strategic maneuvers, all conducted from my small, unassuming apartment, far from the prying eyes and suspicions of Omnicorp. I had used my time as Silas not just to observe, but to gather incontrovertible evidence, not just of the company's declining morale, the shattered trust, but of financial irregularities, unethical practices hidden in plain sight, and a clear, disturbing pattern of discriminatory dismissals, all meticulously documented by my hidden cameras and audio recorders cleverly disguised as innocuous cleaning equipment. Every hushed conversation, every dismissive remark, every cold-hearted decision had been captured. The stage was meticulously set for the quarterly board meeting, a routine affair that Roderick and Bronwyn probably thought would be another opportunity for them to gloat about their efficiency gains and cost reductions, another chance to present their carefully crafted narratives of success. They had absolutely no idea the earthquake that was about to hit, the very ground about to open beneath their feet. On the morning of the meeting, a day that would forever change Omnicorp, I arrived in a sleek, obsidian-black Rolls-Royce Phantom, a vehicle that screamed old money, undeniable power, and an unshakable presence. It pulled up to the main entrance of Omnicorp, the very spot where I had been ignominiously escorted out just days before, a ghost in my own kingdom. The security guard at the gate, the same young man who had led me away, stared, wide-eyed, his jaw slack, as the tinted window of the luxury car smoothly, silently lowered. Inside, I was no longer Silas. I was Lysander Thorne. My hair was impeccably styled, gleaming silver, my bespoke suit a masterpiece of tailoring that whispered authority and quiet menace, and my gaze, once feigned to be bewildered and meek, now held the sharp, unwavering focus of a man ready to reclaim his empire, a storm brewing in their depths. "Good morning," I said, my voice deep and resonant, resonating with an authority that had been dormant for months. "I believe I have a board meeting to attend." The guard stammered, his face a mixture of confusion and dawning recognition, a puzzle piece slotting into place with a terrifying click. "Mr. Thorne. But you're. I mean, you were." I simply offered a slight, knowing smile, a chilling curve of my lips. "It appears I am. Now, if you'll excuse me." I walked into the lobby, past the flustered security, past the gaping receptionists whose polite smiles had dissolved into expressions of utter shock. The hushed whispers followed me, then outright gasps, as employees recognized the founder, the legend, the man who had supposedly retreated from active company life. The ghost returned. The elevator ride to the executive floor felt like a surreal journey back in time, each floor passing a layer of my discarded disguise, shedding the skin of Silas to reveal the true Lysander beneath. With each ascending floor, my resolve hardened further, the weight of the coming confrontation settling firmly on my shoulders. I entered the opulent board room exactly as Roderick, Bronwyn, and the other board members were settling in, a tableau of corporate power oblivious to the impending storm. The room fell silent, the comfortable hum of pre-meeting chatter evaporating instantly. Roderick, who had been mid-sentence, talking with an arrogant flourish about projected Q3 profits, froze, his jaw slack, his face draining of color. Bronwyn's usually unreadable, perfectly composed face contorted into an expression of pure, unadulterated shock, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and disbelieving terror. "Lysander?" Roderick finally managed, his voice a barely audible squeak, as if he were trying to speak through a throat suddenly constricted by fear. "What are you doing here? You're supposed to be retired. On sabbatical." I walked slowly, deliberately, to the head of the table, the seat that was rightfully mine, the throne of my empire, and placed a thick, heavy dossier on the polished mahogany. My gaze swept over them all, lingering pointedly on Roderick and Bronwyn, allowing them to feel the full weight of my return. "Retired?" I echoed, my voice calm, yet resonating with an authority that instantly commanded every ounce of their attention, silencing any lingering thoughts of defiance. "Perhaps. But one can never truly retire from one's life's work, from the very core of one's being. I merely took a sabbatical, Roderick. A sabbatical to truly observe the direction my company was heading. From a different, much clearer vantage point." Bronwyn, recovering slightly, ever the professional, tried to muster some of her usual composure, her voice regaining a fraction of its usual sharp edge. "Mr. Thorne, with all due respect, this is highly irregular. You are no longer an active CEO. Your presence here, unannounced, is a breach of protocol and highly disruptive." I cut her off with a raised hand, a simple gesture that nonetheless stopped her cold. "Irregular? Perhaps. Necessary? Absolutely." I picked up the dossier, its weight feeling significant in my hand. "Over the past few months, I have been Silas, the janitor. The man you so cruelly dismissed just days ago. The man you humiliated publicly, fabricating charges against him, for the sole purpose of ridding yourselves of a perceived inconvenience." The color drained entirely from Roderick's face, leaving him ghostly pale. Bronwyn gasped, a sharp, choked sound that betrayed her carefully constructed composure. The other board members stared, their expressions shifting from confusion to horror as the pieces clicked into place, a terrible realization dawning in their eyes. The Zeigarnik effect was in full swing, their past interactions with Silas now replayed in their minds with horrifying clarity, each dismissive word, each condescending glance, each unthinking act of cruelty, now carrying the undeniable weight of their imminent downfall. Their comfortable world was fracturing. I witnessed everything, I continued, my voice hardening, each word a hammer blow. The heartless dismissals of loyal employees like Mrs. Henderson, a woman who gave her life to Omnicorp, and Michael, who built its very backbone. The pervasive culture of fear and greed you fostered, replacing innovation with intimidation. The ethical compromises you routinely made, pushing the boundaries of what was acceptable for short-term gain. And yes, I looked directly at Roderick, my gaze piercing, your utter disregard for the foundational values of Omnicorp, all in the name of your precious profits and synergy, terms you hollowed of all meaning. Roderick finally found his voice, a desperate, pathetic attempt to regain control, to salvage his rapidly crumbling authority. This is absurd. A childish charade. You can't just invade a board meeting with these baseless accusations. This is defamation. Baseless? I chuckled, a low, dangerous sound that held no humor. I opened the dossier, its contents revealing the damning truth. I have irrefutable video evidence, Roderick. Audio recordings, crystal clear. Detailed accounts from disgruntled employees you thought were too scared to speak up, whose testimonies are now carefully compiled. I have proof of financial manipulations, questionable contracts that enriched your pockets at the company's expense, and a consistent, undeniable pattern of age discrimination in your restructuring efforts. Your dismissal of Silas was merely the final, crucial piece of evidence I needed for a wrongful termination suit that would not only bury this company in scandal but utterly destroy both of your careers and reputations beyond repair. I paused, letting the full, crushing weight of my words hang in the air, allowing them to truly comprehend the magnitude of their predicament. But I won't let my company be buried. I will, however, ensure that those who corrupted it from within face the full, unsparing consequences of their actions. I looked at the security guard who had followed me in, now standing nervously by the door, his eyes wide with stunned realization. Please escort Mr. Thorne Maxwell and Ms. Vance out of this building. Permanently. Their contracts are terminated, effective immediately. All their assets tied to Omnicorp will be frozen pending a full, forensic investigation into their conduct and every single one of their decisions. Roderick exploded, his carefully constructed veneer of corporate professionalism shattering completely, revealing the petulant, entitled man beneath. You can't do this. I'm the CEO. I have a contract. This is illegal. You were the CEO, I corrected him calmly, my voice unwavering, appointed by me. And as the majority shareholder, with more than sufficient evidence of gross misconduct, dereliction of duty, and a clear breach of fiduciary duty, I assure you, I absolutely can. And I just did. Bronwyn, however, was quieter, her face a mask of utter, profound defeat. She knew. She had seen the undeniable evidence I presented and understood its devastating implications. Her cold, calculating efficiency, her ruthless pursuit of profit, had finally, ironically, undone her. As they were led away, their protests growing weaker, more desperate, Roderick still sputtering threats, Bronwyn silent in her despair, I felt a strange, complex mix of vindication and profound sadness. This was not how I ever envisioned reclaiming my company. But it was necessary. Then, I turned my attention to the remaining board members, their faces pale, their eyes filled with a mixture of fear and relief. As for the rest of you, I said, my voice firm, leaving no room for doubt, we have much to discuss. Starting immediately with a complete overhaul of our ethical guidelines, a total reassessment of our HR policies, and an unwavering, immediate return to the foundational values that truly made Omnicorp great. This company will be rebuilt, not just for profit, but for purpose, for people. But there was one more person whose fate needed to be addressed, one who held the key to the future of Omnicorp. I turned to Mr. Henderson, who stood by my side, a faint, almost imperceptible smile playing on his lips. Please locate Ms. Elara Finch and ask her to join us in this meeting, immediately. Tell her it's urgent. The immediate curiosity gap was closing, but a new one was opening in their minds. What would happen to the kind-hearted junior developer? The stage was set for the reward, and the punishment was already in motion. The immediate fallout was precisely as I had planned, though the depth of Roderick's and Bronwyn's shock and disbelief was even more satisfying to witness. Stripped of their power, their carefully constructed facades, and their illusions of control, they became a cautionary tale, a public spectacle of corporate downfall. Roderick, in his initial fury, threatened lawsuits, screamed about defamation, and generally made a pathetic fool of himself, his arrogance finally dissolving into a panicked, childish tantrum. But when my legal team, already waiting in the wings, presented him with the airtight evidence, not just of his mismanagement and ethical negligence but of his questionable financial dealings, insider trading, and outright fraud, his bluster evaporated entirely, replaced by a desperate, pathetic plea for leniency, for mercy. Lysander, please. Don't do this. We're family, he whined, the arrogance completely gone, replaced by the terrified, snot-nosed face of a man who suddenly saw his lavish lifestyle, his carefully curated world, crumbling into dust around him. I looked at him, my expression unyielding, my voice cold. Family doesn't discard its elders like trash, Roderick. Family doesn't poison the well that feeds it. You chose profit over people, image over integrity. You sowed the wind, and now you will reap the whirlwind, a harvest of your own making. He was escorted out, a broken man, his reputation in tatters, his career irrevocably destroyed. His personal wealth, much of it tied up in Omnicorp stock he had manipulated, dwindled to nothing as the news broke, as the investigations began. He would face charges, lengthy legal battles, and a future far removed from the private jets and exclusive clubs he so cherished, a future defined by shame and regret. Bronwyn Vance was quieter, more composed in her defeat, her icy self-control remaining largely intact, but her eyes held a profound despair, a recognition of absolute failure. She knew the game was up, the cards irrevocably stacked against her. Her cold, calculating nature had served her well in climbing the corporate ladder, allowing her to step over countless others without a second thought, but it offered no defense against the truth I had painstakingly uncovered. I was just doing my job, Mr. Thorne, she tried, a last-ditch, hollow effort at justification, at absolving herself. Your job, Ms. Vance, I retorted, my voice cutting through her flimsy excuse, involved systematically dismantling the human spirit of this company, dismissing loyal employees with fabricated excuses, and creating a culture of fear and dehumanization. That is not a job, it is a betrayal of everything Omnicorp stands for, a betrayal of human decency. You will face the consequences of those actions, both legal and professional. Her career in HR was not just over at Omnicorp, but permanently poisoned, likely anywhere else in the industry. Her once spotless professional reputation was now permanently stained, forever linked to the scandal. The cold, calculating woman found herself on the receiving end of the same ruthless efficiency she had once wielded, a justice as precise and unfeeling as her own methods. Meanwhile, Elara Finch, looking utterly bewildered, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and confusion, was gently led into the boardroom by a flustered Mr. Henderson. She must have thought, initially, that she was in trouble for defending Silas, for daring to show compassion. Her eyes darted nervously from me, the imposing founder, to the now empty chairs where Roderick and Bronwyn had sat, her face a living tableau of apprehension. Ms. Finch, I began, my voice softer now, a gentle contrast to the thunderous pronouncements I had just made, a deliberate shift in tone. Thank you for coming. Please, have a seat. I gestured to a chair near me, one of the few still occupied by board members, inviting her into the inner circle. She sat down tentatively, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, looking like a deer caught in the headlights of an oncoming car. Mr. Thorne. I don't understand. Is this about Mr. Silas? I smiled, a genuine, warm smile that reached my eyes, a rare expression these past few months. Indeed, Elara. It is very much about Silas. And, perhaps even more importantly, about you. I paused, letting the suspense build, seeing the flicker of worry still in her eyes, mixed with a growing, uncertain curiosity. Elara, do you remember a few days ago, when Silas was dismissed? When you, despite the palpable risk to your own position, despite the fear in the room, offered him your lunch? Your sandwich and your apple. Her eyes widened in understanding, then in utter disbelief as the incredible, impossible pieces began to click into place in her mind, forming a picture she could barely comprehend. You were Silas, she whispered, her voice barely audible, a fragile thread of sound. I confirmed, my gaze steady, unwavering, filled with immense gratitude. And in that moment, when everyone else looked away, when my own grandnephew by marriage and his HR director publicly humiliated me, you, a junior employee with nothing to gain and everything to lose, showed me more humanity, more courage, and more genuine kindness than anyone else in this entire building. You saw a person, Elara. Not a uniform, not a status, not an inconvenience, but a fellow human being in need. You reminded me of the true heart of Omnicorp, a heart I feared had been lost forever, buried under layers of greed and indifference. Elara was speechless, tears welling in her eyes, whether from sheer shock, overwhelming emotion, or a mixture of both, I couldn't quite tell. She simply stared at me, her chest heaving slightly. Elara, I continued, my voice now filled with a quiet power, a deep sincerity. Your act of selfless compassion, your unwavering integrity in the face of injustice, has proven to me beyond a shadow of a doubt that the values I founded this company on are not dead. They live in you. They live within the spirit of people like you. I leaned forward, my voice resonating with conviction. Therefore, I would like to offer you a new position, effective immediately. You are no longer a junior developer. I am appointing you as the new head of ethical innovation and employee welfare. You will report directly to me, and you will have the full resources and authority to ensure that Omnicorp truly lives up to its name, to be an Omni company, encompassing all, caring for all, putting people first once again. And as a personal gesture of my profound gratitude, a testament to the fact that good deeds do not go unrewarded, I am establishing a trust fund in your name, with a starting endowment of $10 million, to secure your future and to allow you to pursue your passions without any financial constraint, to empower you to live a life of purpose and freedom. Elara's jaw dropped. The tears now streamed freely down her face, a torrent of emotion she couldn't contain. She tried to speak, but only choked sobs emerged, her voice lost in the magnitude of the moment. $10 million. A head executive position. Her meager lunch, a simple act of compassion, had transformed her entire life, her entire future, in an instant, a blink of an eye. It was a moment of pure, raw emotion, a testament to the unforeseen power of genuine human connection, a stark and beautiful contrast to the cold, calculated destruction I had just orchestrated. She was shocked, disbelieving, then slowly, a radiant, utterly pure joy began to bloom on her face, illuminating the room. This was not a reward for ambition or cunning, it was a reward for pure, unadulterated goodness. And that, I realized, watching her, was the most satisfying reward of all. It was the rebirth of Omnicorp. So what happened to them all, in the aftermath of that dramatic day? The dust settled slowly over Omnicorp, but it settled. Roderick and Bronwyn became cautionary tales, their names synonymous with corporate greed, unethical practices, and the chilling consequences of heartless ambition. The investigations into their conduct unearthed more than just the evidence I provided, they revealed a deep, intricate web of deceit, self-enrichment, and calculated malice that cost them everything they held dear, their reputations, their freedom, and their ill-gotten wealth. They faded into obscurity, deservedly so, a stark, indelible reminder that what goes around, truly does come around, often with a vengeance. Their names became a byword for everything Omnicorp had fought to leave behind. As for Ilara, her story became an immediate legend within Omnicorp, whispered in the halls, celebrated in the renewed spirit of the company. She embraced her new, challenging role with the same quiet diligence, profound empathy, and focused passion she had brought to her development work. Under her guidance, and with my full backing as I resumed my active role as chairman, albeit with a renewed focus on strategic vision and mentorship, Omnicorp underwent a profound and lasting transformation. We re-established transparent HR policies, launched innovative initiatives to support our long-term employees, ensuring their invaluable experience was treasured, not discarded. We shifted our focus back to ethical innovation, using technology to genuinely improve lives, not just to line pockets or appease shareholders. Ilara championed programs that recognized and rewarded loyalty, nurtured talent at every level, and fostered a revitalized culture of empathy and mutual respect. Her calm leadership, her unwavering moral compass, and her innate kindness proved to be far more effective, far more powerful, than Roderick's ruthless efficiency or Bronwyn's cold calculations. She proved, definitively, that kindness wasn't a weakness, but a profound, enduring strength, the bedrock of true success. And I found a peace I hadn't felt in years, a profound sense of closure and renewed purpose. The company I built, the legacy I cherished, was safe once more. It was no longer a hollow shell driven by profit margins and corporate ruthlessness, but a vibrant, thriving ecosystem of talented, ethical people, bound by shared values. Watching Ilara flourish, seeing the tangible, positive changes ripple through the entire organization, brought me more satisfaction than any financial success or personal accolade ever could. I had conducted my experiment, a painful journey into the heart of my creation, and the results were clear, unambiguous. The greatest lesson I learned, one that I hope resonates deeply with all of you, is this: true character is never revealed in how we treat those above us, those who can grant us favors, or those who can do something for us. It is revealed, purely and unequivocally, in how we treat those who can seemingly do nothing for us, those we perceive as beneath us, those who are utterly powerless. It is in the small, unseen acts of kindness, the moments when we choose compassion over convenience, empathy over self-interest, dignity over disdain, that the true measure of a person's soul is taken. And in those moments, the most unexpected heroes often emerge, illuminating the path forward for us all, reminding us what it truly means to be human. I learned my lesson about human nature, a lesson I paid a high price to learn, enduring discomfort and humiliation, but one that was ultimately worth every single moment of that profound, transformative journey. Our channel is full of stories like this, narratives that delve into the complexities of human behavior, shining a light on both the shadows and the brilliance within us all. If you found this story compelling, if it resonated with you, please consider subscribing and turning on notifications so you don't miss our next deep dive into the human experience. Have you ever been surprised by someone's true colors, either for better or for worse, when the mask finally slipped? Tell me your story in the comments below. I read every single one.